Welcome back to the Sageverse. My name's Jason, and on today's episode of the Sage's Thoughts, I'm going to be talking about the mind-body problem, otherwise known as the problem of consciousness. Now, things really kicked off under Descartes when he introduced the concept of duality. For those of you who are interested in philosophy, I'm sure you've came across the phrase, "I think, therefore I am." By thinking, we are acknowledging that there are mental properties, or at least putting forward that argument that if I know that I exist, then there must be something beyond my physical body to claim that I exist. However, modern science, or science as we know it today, cannot point their finger, or put their finger on rather, on what that mental property is. We can only observe physical reality. And how do we attach feelings and subjective qualities to physical matter? How do we explain it? And I suppose the dualistic point of view puts forward the argument that there are two substances existing in reality, and that is physical matter and mental properties. Now, if we cannot observe mental properties in reality, then how do we know they exist? If the only substance that we can scientifically prove is physical matter, then how do we explain subjective qualities? How do we explain what things feel like? There is a term that is often used in philosophy to describe those feelings, which are qualia. The idea of what is it like when you feel pain. We know that it is neurons firing, or at least physically, we know what is going on in the human condition. Neurons are firing and are giving off these pain signals, which are then felt by humans. But neurons firing does not explain what it feels like. The concept of feeling, or how something feels, is entirely subjective, because how I might feel, how another person might feel, or how you might feel is entirely different. Our subjective responses could be, completely different. So how do we put our finger on what that difference is? And can we deduce that solely to physical matter? And is subjective feeling, or the subjective qualities that we attach to physical responses, do they even exist? Are they real, or are they some form of illusion? Now, again, this argument, or this idea of duality or mental substance, kind of coincides with the idea of determinism and free will, because the idea that we have a free will implies that everyone has a subjective way of going about life. And therefore, if everything was physically inclined, although there would be different physical constitutions, every action would therefore be determined by the physical derivative. So if my physical being and someone else's physical being, we are completely different, we have different constitutions, we would just be manifestations of those physical beings, and there would be no free will, no subjective driver or ruler of that physical body. So in that sense, the two arguments, or the two fields, are somewhat connected if we look at it that way. But for me, at least, the idea of mental properties existing, it seems to be something that we would naturally intuit. It'd be something that in our intuition we believe are real. I think when Descartes was saying, "I think, therefore I am," he was, appealing to logic, but also appealing to the intuition of believing that there is a free will, a mind that is able to drive the seat. And I suppose if we are to consider the existence of God as well, providing that free will, then it's easy to see how a society or an individual may come at that conclusion. But obviously it stands in the face of science, which is that the only substance that we can observe in reality is physical matter. And physicalists are pretty damn fixed on the idea that that is the case. So how do they then define what those feelings are? Are they merely just expressions of physical matter? The idea that mental properties supervene on physical properties, they're just an expression of it. And there are a few case studies that have been done to either put forward the argument that mental properties exist or they do not exist. And one of those studies is called Mary in the Black and White Room. Now, there's this individual called Mary, and she has been given lots of books and she has studied her entire life. She knows nearly everything a person could know about color. However, she has never experienced what color is. So she can give you the textbook definition of what the color red is. She could give you the textbook definition of every color that exists. She is an expert, but she lives in this black and white room. Now, what happens is Mary exits the black and white room and sees color for the first time. Does she gain more knowledge? That's the big question, because if the premise is that she already has all the information that one could possibly have on the color red or the color green, then what is it that is new that she discovers as she exits the room? Well, it is the qualia. It is the subjective quality or the feeling of experiencing the color red, green, blue, whatever. But what if she already had all the information that exists in physical reality? Does this put forward the argument that the knowledge that she did not have is mental by nature, and that mental quality that was discovered is a property that exists in some kind of metaphysical plane, or this reality that lies beyond the physical? It's something that is entirely subjective, but at the same time so intimately real. How do we define that? Again, if you're interested in these kind of case studies, there are quite a few of them that have been done by philosophers to discover whether mental properties, or thought experiments to discover whether mental properties exist. So this is one of my favorite ones, because it's quite simple to understand in terms of how Mary arrives at the knowledge of discovering color, but it's obviously very difficult to explain that hard problem of consciousness. How do we explain what qualia is in physical terms? So thank you for watching today's episode on the Sage's Thoughts. If you like the discussion, leave a thumbs up, subscribe, share with your family and friends, and please put in the comment section down below, what do you think? Do you think mental properties exist, or is the only substance in reality physical matter? Leave your opinions down below. Thanks. Peace out.
Welcome to the Sage Verse, with real works and true words. Patterns of recognition leave your brain converged. Time is irrelevant when the thoughts of impediment corrupt your soul with mind-numbing nemesis. The sage's way is where the truth hits the page. Turn your soul into a library in the name of knowledge and discovery. We seek out reality to be gone of human apathy.